morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Well, today is the day the Supreme Court will be reviewing its earlier judgment in the case of Imo that has sent former Governor Senator Ihedioha, as it were, packing and has replaced him with Senator Uzodinma. Now they are reviewing that case because Ihedioha of the PDP has protested the Supreme Court granting victory to APC's Uzodinma. It's perhaps to most of us an unusual situation because we've always said that the Supreme Court is the last bus stop, and once the Supreme Court has pronounced, you've exhausted all your appeals. But then this particular case did create something of an uproar, both locally and internationally. So we'll be looking at that today, and as we wait on what the result of this review, where I saw one application, I know, by PDP Ihedioha, that all the honorable justices that participated in the last decision, should kindly consider recusing themselves. Matters of bias, defined very, very technically and respectfully from a legal perspective, were proffered and no doubt considered. But here we are today. Well, to look at this with me, Dr. Jide Johnson, Deputy Provost, Nigerian Institute of Journalism. As always, Jide, thanks a million for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be with you after a long while.
Indeed, it's been quite a while. And Mr. Maya Okunilo, an economist and public affairs analyst. Thanks as always again for being with us. It's been quite a while. In fact, it's quite refreshing. I could be saying to you two gentlemen, compliments of the season, even though it's in February.
Happy New Year to you. And
that shows how long ago we've been together.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Indeed. Let me start with you, if I may, Dr. Johnson. It's not a very usual situation, is it? That after the Supreme Court has pronounced, usually everybody retires and says, well, you lick your wounds, that's the end of it. But in this case, perhaps to paraphrase it, the cut has been so deep, it raised such an outcry, even spilled beyond our shores. And the review today, we've been hearing that there are a number of notable citizens that shall be observers of goings on. First of all, your impressions on the Supreme Court revisiting at all?
Well, you have every right to approach the courts. The courts are open. The courts are not close to you concerning approaching the courts, and I think that's what the PDP has done.
But the last bus stop principle.
But for the Supreme Court to change his mind, I don't think that's possible. Once a decision has been taken, it's fine. But the Supreme Court can also have a review where they explain the reason why they took that decision and they arrived at that decision. That we are having such review, if you have looked at chieftaincy matter, land matters, and the rest of it over the years, it's just because this one has a political undertone. That's why it's coming as a surprise to a lot of people. And Supreme Courts do have review of some of the decisions, providing positions when you have grants of appeal concerning the decision that has been taken. But once that decision has been taken, they will explain their position. They would rather go to the graveyard with, quote unquote, if there is a mistake, than for them to change their mind. Otherwise, that title supreme is no longer there. So because there must be an end to every litigation. There must be an end. Now, if the Supreme Court changes its mind over cases, over time, there won't be end to litigation. Because once the Supreme Court reviews my case and it gives judgment to me after losing in the first instance, the person that won in the first instance, we also approach the Supreme Court for an appeal, and then we keep approaching the Supreme Court over and over again. I believe the political dimension that this one took is what has caused this kind of attention that we have given to it. That Supreme Court does not review. Because I remember the case of the tussle over the stool in offer. There was a review of the judgment that was given by the Supreme Court.
But the decision did not change.
Decision remained final.
Mr. Elo, how say you in terms of, as we're hearing from Dr. Johnson, it's not totally unheard of, but perhaps because this concern, usually Supreme Court decisions might not concern everybody, as you said, referring to land matters, chieftaincy matters. But this one, even though we're dealing with Imo here, concerned not just all of Nigerians, because what is happening here might also happen to me, so everybody paid attention. But what do you think of this? And the fact that Dr. Johnson has explained it this way, if indeed his theory is right, that they hardly ever will change their decision, the most you will get is a further explanation. If indeed that is so, then isn't it almost like a waste of time?
Well, I would not want to preempt whatever the Supreme Court has to say on this. But that said, a justice of the U.S. of blessed memory said something. He said, justice must not only be done, it must be seen to have been done. While the judgment of the Supreme Court is final, the fact that they agreed to listen to this means they are conscious of public perception of their role in a democracy like ours.
I wonder if you saw the what does one call it now? The
Application?
Sorry.
Is it the application?
Yes, yes. And those very fine language, clearly drafted by a senior lawyer, you know, where he made all sorts of cases.
I'm not a lawyer.
As to
but
what bias means.
But as an average Nigerian, whose destiny, in some respects too, is affected by the pronouncements of the court, Supreme Court. I would say it is their right to make an application based on whatever information they have at their disposal. But the Supreme Court, having listened, I doubt very much so if they will go against their earlier judgments. For some reasons, like Dr. Johnson said, there is no judicial precedent for this unless there is a change in the circumstance. Nothing changed from the underlying facts. The Supreme Court may have erred, but there are some errors you carry. Is a burden. Roe Wade.
That very sliver right there.
You know,
that very sliver right there. No doubt.
No doubt.
What
you
the
realize
PDP
that
is focusing on.
You realize that over time, Supreme Court justices are human beings, and it depends. The same U.S. that said, for instance, that okay, it is okay to own slaves. You can't go to the same Supreme Court now and say you want to own slaves. The same justices over time, things change. Whatever it is that the Supreme Court found that made them award that judgment to Uzodinma, they will at most try to justify it, or at best say, do not use this as a judicial precedence. That is for cases coming after this. This one has been done.
Well,
everybody should accept.
It'll be interesting the things we are coming up with. We being laymen, perhaps knowledgeable, certainly on this side of the table. But it's interesting because, and I know you just said that they might, and we're still theorizing here, they might conceivably say it is what it is. However, maybe we shouldn't use this as precedence. Again, you can't probably, if it has happened before, it has happened before, and it can be referred to by lawyers in court.
You know, the good thing is I read the interview that the CJN, the statement from their office, when the AMCON chairman visited him last year. He said something. He said we are, as Supreme Court justices, we are answerable to our conscience and to God. We don't bow to anybody. So you should be afraid of somebody who is only accountable to his conscience and to his God. You don't know his God. His God is the things he has learned over time, the values he has espoused, the way he has. He said when we review cases, we look at it dispassionately. We hold conferences Monday to Friday. So whatever it is that they banded together, they reasoned and decided to do, we on this other side of the table, we can only imagine. But when the thing comes in, the highest respect has to be given to them. The respect has to be given to them.
Okay.
We should not we should not second guess them.
No,
yes.
Don't forget that this judgment was unanimous. It was not a split decision.
That's right.
It was not a split decision, say 4-3, 3-2. It was unanimous decision. So in their own opinion, like he said, in their own judgment, they must have come to realize, because there was no dissenting at all. There was no dissenting voice with respect to that decision. And we as human, and they as human, but they as expert in these matters, must have been exposed to a lot of things we are not exposed to. When it comes to politics, there's an ideological divide. There's a partisan divide. Now, we see the judgment of Imo. PDP screams. You see the judgment of Bayelsa. So, yes. in the actual sense, the justices can't come to a decision except you make the presentation. It is the prayers. For example, if I slap you, Uncle Yori, and you take me to court, and you charge me to court for assault, and your lawyers do not make part of the prayers for compensation, that you should be paid 10 million or 10 billion naira in your case, the judges will not award to you because it is not in your prayers. That's right. It is what you pray before the court that the court grants. So it depends on what Uzodinma filed, the counter applications that was made by PDP concerning the case. Don't forget, the central theme of the case is the wrongful exclusion of 388 polling units. That's wrongful. That's data. Wrongful exclusion. Why would you deny the God-given right to people in those particular areas their rights to vote? The right to vote is the right to life. So that's the judgment. Now, how do you prove beyond reasonable doubt that those wrongful exclusion are wrongful exclusion or rightful exclusion? So it is the prayer before the court. Indeed. So it is whatever you pray that the court will grant. We have our sentiments, we have our biases, depending on the political camp we belong to.
Okay. Mr. George in Ikeja, good morning, sir.
Okay, all right. Good morning to you and to your guest.
Thank you.
Please permit me to disagree a little on this perfection of the Supreme Court. There is no perfection on earth. As long as we are human beings, we are prone to mistakes. Supreme Court judges must not tell me that they cannot make mistakes. If there is a need for a review, there should be a review in the interest of justice and peace. That's why it is in the Supreme Court. But, Uncle Yori, if there is to be a review at all, based on the facts that I have seen, it is the Bayelsa verdict that should be reviewed. In the case of Imo, 388 polling units where results were declared were excluded that gave Uzodinma over 230,000 votes. There is no way you can change that fact. If those votes are counted, it will come to the majority. But in the case of Bayelsa, there is obvious miscarriage of justice, I dare say. You do not visit the scene of the deputy governor on the governor. The law says that the reason why you have a governor and a deputy is if something happens to the deputy governor takes over. If something happens to the deputy governor, the governor continues until another deputy governor is found. Take, for example, if the governor drops dead, because it's a joint ticket, would you also kill the deputy governor because they were holding a joint ticket? That is whose judgment on Bayelsa seems to be painting as a picture. There should be a separation between the two. The governor that was elected on a clean slate should be allowed to rule. The deputy governor that had issues can face his own, and a new deputy governor should be appointed by the party. That is what I think the Supreme Court should review.
All right.
Not Imo that already has a... Okay, I'm sorry to take your time. There's another observation about the PDP. They are saying that party judges should recuse themselves from the Imo review.
Yes.
But in the case of Bayelsa, the head of the panel, Justice Mary Odili, is the wife of a PDP chieftain. In fact, she's from that region. The APC people did not say because she's related to a PDP chieftain that she should not be part of that panel. I don't know why the PDP behaves like like, I'm sorry I won't use bad words.
Okay.
Thank you, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Based on where he went, I have read the judgment. I share his sentiment. For me, I don't believe court should be involved in declaring someone the winner. It should be the actual vote of the people. Based on the election that was conducted in Bayelsa, you know that the Bayelsa people actually wanted a change. They want a transition from PDP to APC. There's no doubt about that. I felt passionate about it. I felt bad about it. I think you shouldn't be winning elections via the courts. I shared. But however, there's a provision. I read the judgment. I read the 24-page judgment. What was established in the first paragraph of the file of the case was that it was a joint ticket. I told you earlier, what you don't take to the court, you don't get. Are you with me? That was established in the first paragraph. It was established. It was a joint ticket. It was a joint ticket. That was what was established in that judgment. That's what they inched their case on. As a result of a joint ticket, if one leg of the joint ticket is faulty, based on certain provisions in the Electoral Act, and based on Section 138 of 1999 Constitution as amended, both the governor and the deputy governor are not qualified to run. You see, one of the challenges we have is the inconsistency. If you take it back to Faleke, Yaya Bello issue, where the Supreme Court ruled it was not a joint ticket. Now the Supreme Court is ruling it was. So it is those inconsistencies that create problems.
That are really muddying the waters for us.
That creates problems. But as far as the judgment, and I challenge anybody to go and read the judgment. It's a 24-page. My boss sent it to me. He said, before you talk on anything, before you talk on any judgment, because Jide, you have to read it.
Yeah.
That's what my boss, he's a lawyer, told me. So it was the one that even sent me the judgment.
I read. That's our Mr. Obuleye.
So I read the judgment. So if you read the judgment, it's devoid of bias. It is whatever you take to the court.
As other lawyers have phrased it, the courts are not Father Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. They will not serve you
they will
dinner
not
a la
give you.
carte. No, they will not serve you.
Femi Nsu, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your dad.
Good morning.
And I want to thank TVC for giving us this platform to hear our view. So what my own contribution is that our judiciary should buckle up when it comes to constitutional matters. Justice should be addressed expeditiously, because we now have somebody carrying like 9 legislators to inside his bedroom to say he's doing inauguration. Those issues should have been solved promptly. So I will advise the Chief Justice, anything that concerns a constitutional matter, they should do it fast, so that they will not cause anarchy. Some people have won their election, they are not even represented at the moment in Edo State. This thing should have been done officially so that the team will get out of this thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Femi, for calling in. You know, all of this, perhaps, as has been said before now, is most unsatisfactory, where the courts have found themselves in the middle of deciding elections. And so we have situations where sometimes, even before getting to this stage, when people want to parody the whole situation, they say, we'll go to court. If you're not satisfied, go to court. And this is concerning elections, that it's supposed to be one man, one vote. As Jide said, that's our right to life right there. I put in my vote, it should count. Maybe we'll have to come and look at, not maybe, people have been advocating, we have to come and look at the whole electoral law and how it goes.
I think that is
look at this Imo stage, where the very first time they appeared in court, a win to Ihedioha. The second time, Ihedioha. But the third time now, well, the 2 courts below him, below that court,
I think at the end of the
we're
day,
knocked out.
A lot of changes is still required. INEC, judiciary.
One moment, sir. Let me just bring in Reverend Dominic so that I won't have to interrupt you. Okay. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Chief Yori.
Thank you for calling, sir.
Good morning to your 2 guests.
Sure.
Good morning,
My
Reverend.
big friend, a journalist. Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend.
Yori, can I talk now? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, Yori, please let me make some clarification yesterday. Sorry to take you a second. About Barrister Obani. What I was saying yesterday is that Barrister Obani has been in front of campaigning for good justice and good government. And he has been doing that. He should continue doing it.
Okay.
The other people joined it too. I think despite his,
Okay.
this years, I know it's in 2003. He fought for us as we went through the flesh. He fought for us. So I appreciate him. I appreciate what he does.
All right.
Please, today, I'm Bimo. I'm a critical stakeholder. In short, I'm from the same situation with Ihedioha, from the same. And since the days of Imo State, old Imo, to the new Imo, the same people have not governed Imo State. But why do I say this? I'm not expecting much today from Supreme Court. But what I'm expecting today from Supreme Court is this, for clarification. Because after we have done our mathematics in Nigeria, in Nigeria, 1 + 1 is not 2. We understood we have about 102,000 votes. There are more than people vote accredited. If we have 10 people accredited in Imo, by Supreme Court judgment, we have 50 people voted and 10 was accredited. I would like the clarification. One, the matter is this. I wouldn't even like them to go back and forth. Going back and forth is like turning the attention of people. If you go back to Ihedioha today, I don't know how you move tomorrow. I'm not giving them what to say, but I don't think I judge against themselves today. But let them make clarification to us. How they got these 200 and 300 people? They are more than what INEC have in their own record. That's the question we want today. And whatever they give today, there must be end for litigation. Whatever politicians get in court, they deserve it.
Indeed.
Good morning, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic, calling in from Alimosho there. Indeed, as Dr. Johnson said at the very, very beginning, there has to be an end to litigation sometime. Yeah. But again, one can't second guess them. As we said, let's wait and see where all of this leads. But there are those who are saying that perhaps the most that you will get, and this is their own theorizing, will be a further clarification, explanation perhaps of the judgment, which I don't know. There was a time when former president, when he was president, Obasanjo, saying that he didn't understand the ruling of the Supreme Court, and I think the response was something sharp to the effect of which part of the statement, decision written in English, do you not understand? But here, sensibilities are different, because as I said, this case has reached beyond the shores of Nigeria. I don't know, you might have seen some of these videos yourself, especially from some American legislators who are using not the most diplomatic and discreet of language to, knock Nigeria, make unkind suggestions, thoroughly unprofessional sometimes, along the lines of the courts being in the hands of the executive in Nigeria. But we have a situation, it's unhappy, but in one case, it went for the ruling party. In another case, it went against the ruling party. And typical of us in Nigeria, when it went for the ruling party, all sorts of praise, that we know that the Supreme Court is the bastion of hope, the Kiniko, and all of that. Now it's gone against it, and we actually made pronouncements. The ruling party actually made pronouncements that what the Supreme Court has so determined cannot possibly hold, which people protested about.
I think at the end of the day, what I see is a Supreme Court that is overwhelmed.
By the reaction, you mean by the reaction of people?
Not the reaction, with the workload that they have. I listened
at the time in which they had
Festus Keyamo, SAN,
yes,
when he was being screened for his ministerial post. He delved into the workings of the Supreme Court. And he made us realize that if he were to be made the Attorney General, for instance, there will be some changes that will be mandated to make them work better. The preponderance of cases that go up to the Supreme Court are uncalled for. And they might be the reason we are having some of these issues we are having. We don't have enough constitutional experts. We don't have enough experts on various arms of the law. Wherever you are coming from, you become a Supreme Court judge, and thousands of cases are waiting to be heard. Imagine the CJN saying that sometimes they decide on as much as 20 cases in a week. That number is much. We used to have this West African Court of Appeal before the creation of Supreme Court in the 50s. When Supreme Court was created, there was some kind of judicial pronouncement that I was not expected to get to the level of Supreme Court. It should stop at the appeal court. But now everything gets to the Supreme Court. So at the end of the day, they are only human. To err is human. But if they make a mistake, as long as it is not capital, we should be able to live with it. That is one side.
Yes.
Then the other side is they too should be able to explain their decision making, because it is not about them. There are students in the law schools. There are people at various bars trying to understand and set a precedent, understand the pattern.
Sorry for jumping in. Sorry, well, we will, no doubt. But Jide was just telling us that it's a 24-page decision that he read
for the Bayelsa
for the Bayelsa case, not in this one. So usually the explanations are copious, but as you said, maybe we'll get further clarification. Meanwhile, Mr. Okoro has come on the line from Owerri. Okoro from Owerri, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, the guest in the studio.
Thank you for calling.
My name is Okoro Chukwuemeka, and I'm calling from Imo State, Owerri to be precise. You know, I want our elders, I'm 35 years old, listening and watching the game played in Nigeria, because it is coming to my notice and understanding as a graduate and as a young man who will eventually move into politics, that I should go and make money and come and sit down in my bedroom and write my result and forward it to the court, and from there pursue it to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will grant me whatever I want with my money.
That's a bit cynical. Isn't that a bit cynical, Mr. Okoro?
Hold on.
That's a bit cynical.
Hold on. Because Senator Hope Uzodimma, on which party is he contesting? Supreme Court said that Uche Nwosu, who is the governor, who is the in-law to former governor of Imo State, is the rightful candidate of APC. In 2019, Supreme Court gave him verdict and gave him the mandate. AA, another party, gave him mandate to contest on. So on which platform is Hope Uzodimma contesting? Two, the 388 wards.
Units.
INEC said...
Units, actually. Units.
The units were cancelled. How many local governments do we have in Imo State if you add that 388 units? 2, 3, how many local governments Hope Uzodimma win? If we say that before you become a governor, you must win 2/3. Now, Hope Uzodimma did not win one local government because there is no APC House of Representatives in Imo State. All of them defected from PDP or AA to APC.
You know, I've got to go now. Really, I beg your pardon. I've got to go off on a break. I'm so sorry about that. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and my apologies to Mr. Okoro in Owerri. It was the almighty commercial break that I was just hopping from one foot to the other. I'm so sorry about that, that we couldn't take the entirety. But you did get, I think, 3 points across that were bemusing you as we were speaking. And no doubt we'll hear how the lordships, you know, how they arrived at the decision, which, by the way, is being enjoyed as we speak by Senator Uzodimma, now Governor Uzodimma of APC, the INEC haven't been directed to withdraw the certificate of returns from Ihedioha, hand it over to Uzodimma, and by implication swear him in. But even the Supreme Court, as it was speaking, did not go ahead and say this thing in the simplest way possible. You remember at that particular time?
I think...
It did not go ahead and say, now we've decided, you know, withdraw from Uzodimma, from Ihedioha, hand over to, you know, they use they choose to use the language of hand over to the next the next candidate.
I think in the case of Uzodinma, they were explicit.
They were explicit. That's
Explicit.
the contradiction.
And that's where the issue comes from.
Okay.
According to the Electoral
I'm
Act,
confusing it with
Bayelsa.
With Bayelsa,
according to the Electoral Act, from winning the majority, you also have to win 2/3.
Have 1/3 of the vote casted.
25% of
cast in
2/3 of the local government. According to lawyers now, it didn't meet that criteria. So is the Supreme Court going to reverse itself on that count? Or
Yes.
you are expected to use this as a one-off?
In the first instance,
because it runs contrary to the Constitution.
The Imo's election from the onset. Don't forget, it's in Imo that we have a pending case that has not been reviewed of the electoral officer declaring a senatorial candidate under duress. And even in the first instance, Ihedioha did not even fulfill the constitutional requirement to be declared in the first instance. If he didn't have the spread, we talked about the spread. You see, we must, and this is where the in the first instance. Now, this is where the need for us to review the electoral needs to come in, and this is where the National Assembly needs to work very, very fast, so that we don't get to the situation whereby the electoral is not signed into law, so as to deal with some of the issues which we have raised concerning one, who is the candidate of this party, who is the candidate of this party. You know, we have pre-elections litigation affecting that of Bayelsa. We have post-election litigation affecting that of Imo State, and the inconsistency from the Supreme Court with respect to who is the actual candidate of APC in Imo State, because their judgment disqualified Uche Nwosu for having double nomination, AA candidate and APC candidate. But aside the Supreme Court, let's come to the party themselves. Let's look at 2019 elections and look at what has happened. In Zamfara State, for example, the people are being governed by people they did not elect to govern them. As a result of Supreme Court, as a result of APC disqualification of APC candidate for not validly nominating candidates. We have the situation also in Rivers State where APC did not have candidate. We have a situation in Bayelsa State which APC lost the mandate of the people as a result of not tidying up what they are supposed to do, and then INEC playing its role. For example, what is the essence of INEC screening the party? What is the essence of INEC not doing its job of screening the party to tell the candidate whether this candidate are validly nominated or not? For in the case of Bayelsa State, if INEC had done due diligence, we won't have the problem we're having. If APC on its own has done due diligence, there won't be the need for, because the parties call for nomination of candidates. The candidates are screened by the party, and they go for primaries, and then they collect the nominations form from INEC. The nominations form are sent to INEC. INEC use all other security agencies. And so it's a failure.
It is.
It's a systemic failure. So we shouldn't put the blame alone on the Supreme Court, because people like cherry picking.
Yes.
Or a Supreme Court. But what are other agencies? What have they done? The quality control. What have they done in the process? If I were to take a decision, I'm telling you, Uncle Yori, I will sack the APC national chairman.
Okay. Chineye in Owerri. Good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling.
Ndewo.
Well, please go ahead.
All right. Okay, indeed, the issue in Imo State is this. Like the lawyers, people will always say, fact belongs to law, truth belongs to God. In Imo State, every one person knows that Hope Uzodinma never contested for any election in Imo State. Even his party members will tell you that he wasn't ready during that election. He didn't campaign anywhere in Imo State. He relied on the game plan that they will play, which is playing out now on that result sheet that they wrote. I am telling you from word to word. Even their agents during election, when the announcement was made in favor of Ihedioha, they said that he was not serious. But he came back home and told them that he will not come back to Imo State until he got his mandate. So it was a planned game at the Nifty. Like what the other man said. Uchemosu was the standard bearer of APC. At what point did Hope become the standard bearer of APC? That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, sir. He's our brother. Our people said, arrow. Every time you shoot an arrow, it will hit a bar. You see, for the bar that the arrow was meant for, INEC. Look at all the whole states. You still find INEC being a problem to every problem of election. They know what is happening. Now, how can you tell me that such result was cancelled and none of the INEC officers came to testify that this is our result or this is not our result? But that's by the way, they said in court, they came and testified that the result sheet is their own, but the figure in it was not from them.
So as far as you are concerned, Chineye, the situation as it is the right situation. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No, sir.
The opposite.
What I'm saying, sir, is this. Hope the Uzodinma never campaigned in Imo State.
Okay.
Go out and check.
Okay.
In our state.
So Ihedioha should be in place. Should have been in place.
What I'm saying for now.
Yes.
For now, today that they are going to review it, let's see where they are standing as well.
All right.
Give me the 25% across. No. So why we are wanting this? We need a review in our INEC system. There is nothing that boils down than INEC being the problem, the arrowhead.
Yes.
How can a father not identify his son? That is what is happening.
Thank you very much,
You
Chineye,
said
for
you
calling in.
conducted this
Appreciate your call.
investigation. Now tell us.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your calling in. As you gentlemen have said, and certainly Jide at the top of the program, we really need to come and take a serious view of our electoral laws and how these things are, how they become I think you've explained part of it in passing because it's a deep subject. You started from the West African Court of Appeal and how today just about everything goes to the Supreme Court. And the doability or otherwise of the task before them, given the time in which they have to do it. And that's why probably sometimes we hear of cases in Supreme Court for 10, 15, 20 years. You know, sometimes the original people have actually passed on by the time a decision is reached. But in the case of elections, we can't afford any such luxury. They say the wheels of justice grind slowly, but sometimes those wheels are sped up. With what result now is the situation?
I think the problem is the people that hold the levers of power. Most of them are not sincere enough to want the kind of change.
And how independent is our judiciary? Is probably
well, you may not be able to comment a lot on the independence of the judiciary.
Well, people certainly are commenting outside of Nigeria.
Outside of Nigeria, but
that look, the way they see things going on there, they're beginning to worry. And I, no doubt.
Are you worried about the U.S. Supreme Court?
Not really.
I am. But because look at the judgment. There is an ideological divide. It's 5-4. 5 of the 9 justices were nominated by a Republican president, and 4 of the sitting justices are nominated by Democrats.
Well, okay. So you asked the question whether I was concerned about the Supreme Court carrying goings on in America, and I said not really. I was looking at it from our own point of view. So they should not be
worried for us as much as we are not worried for theirs. That's what I'm saying. Okay. You see, this thing balances itself out.
And,
in the life
and they operate within the lives of the people.
In the lifespan, for example, one of the callers said, Mary Odili is PDP. Don't forget, in 2019, some people said that the president of the appeal court, she recused herself, was an APC. This thing balances itself. If you look at the totality of the
and that statement about Mary Odili,
of the justices in the Supreme Court, some were nominated by military president, some were nominated by PDP president, and some are nominated by APC. It balances itself.
Well, it becomes so confusing. And people have said that Mary Odili should be left, just leave politics out of all of this.
It balances itself out over time.
Okay.
That's why people should not stigmatize the justice of the Supreme Court with political lineage. This thing balances itself out. If you are talking about
Ibe in Owerri, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Ibe.
My name is Ibe Ugochukwu, calling from Owerri.
You're very welcome.
Okay. What I want to contribute in this issue is very simple. There was this thing a man of God told me when I was young, when we were saying, don't drink alcohol. And I said, alcohol is not a sin in the Bible, except when you drink it in excess. The man now said, if you don't drink alcohol at all, how can you drink in excess? If there be a law that would checkmate the way our election process will go, the way everything should be taken one after the other, I don't see all these things coming up from different court judgments on different times on the Supreme Court, all these one. And as it goes on, it will be affecting people doing business in those states because everything will be a standstill. So let the Constitution be amended concerning our electoral system so that it can be sacrosanct. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, is the Constitution worrying us, for instance, in this particular case now?
Because there is inconsistency on Kuyori. If you take the Falike Yaya Bello issue, then you look at the Imo issue, then you look at the Bayelsa issue. There's no jurisprudence.
Even
Amechi Omeha issue. You see, there should be a trend in terms of jurisprudence, in terms of consistency. This is the principle that guides, and principles are not subject to change. So that this is the guiding principle guiding our judgment. We don't.
Apparently, we're still looking for it. We're still experimenting.
That's why we are looking for explanation. We should be able to say without fear now that, you know what, if you go to an election and your candidate, your running mate has a K-leg,
yes,
you know that at the end of the day, it's a fatal attempt. But we don't know because today the Supreme Court might rule this way, tomorrow they might rule this.
Indeed, and that is unsatisfactory.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is very, very unsatisfactory.
Just give me this minute. Some of the challenge is that we should, for example, in the United States Supreme Court, there are 9.
I think we have 7, right?
We have
up to
16 justices.
Yeah,
so
but at any time,
you have a team attending to this.
Either
you have
5
another
or 7
attending to this. I think we should institutionalize and concretize.
Okay.
That and like he said, we should limit judgments, cases that get
has to do with interpretation of the Constitution.
Exactly. So before I come to you, Madam Josephine in Aja, good morning, ma'am.
Yes, Uncle Yari, good morning, long time.
Good morning, ma'am. It's been quite a while.
And to your guests.
Sure.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes. My issue in this judgment is really worrisome because it's not telling well about our judiciary system. Election should be decided by the people, not by Supreme Court, because it's the people's mandate. They are having issue here and there. In the case of Imo, you can see the anger, you can see the way people are not happy about it because they know they gave their vote to Ihedioha. In the case of Bayelsa, they gave their vote to David Lyon. Why will the Supreme Court be giving judgment? Why did the president did not sign the amendment bill that was given to him? All the causes from that. If they sign that law, if they amend the electoral law, all these problems will not face them because everybody will vote according to their conscience and everything we count. Because if you have everything well counted and everybody testify of it, they have their copy, all this one will not come up. It's because of impunity. Impunity is too much in our electoral system. They should amend it so that the foreign bodies will look at us and be proud of us. Impunity everywhere. The people should have their mandate. Not Supreme Court will give them. Now anybody likes, they will go to the court and they will just take the mandate from the people, which is very, very painful. Bayelsa, they are bleeding because of the Supreme Court. Imo State too. So what I expect the court to do, they should review it and play balanced play. Let Imo have their own people. Let Bayelsa have their own people so that we have peace. Have peace in this country.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Josephine. Indeed, it is the way it is, and by which I mean that, look, ultimately, the principle is good, but ultimately, the highest you can go is the Supreme Court, because we have to have some sort of organization in society. And unfortunately, Jide has pointed out the lack of consistency. If a layman were to just check it out, just look at a spectrum of judgments, you might not see a unifying thread so that you can also now predict. And it looks like it's become something of a, although I'm sure lawyers will shudder when I say it's become something of potluck. You know,
more like
just go. You know, you never know what your luck will be. The lordships, you know, depending on what group of them come together, might decide. But Jide has made the point that, look, can 5 justices all err in the same way? That's something else.
Well, we cannot.
You know, I'm just saying, as an
can't
ordinary human
second-guess
being,
them, but
we can't second guess. But Jide made the point, for whatever it is worth, that it wasn't a 3-2. 4-1.
I think
it was a 5-0.
7 of them had a unanimous decision.
Were it 7 or 5?
They were 7.
They were 7.
They were
so,
7.
And okay,
they all went in the same
all
direction.
of them went in the same way.
But there's a reason we have 3 arms of government, because of things like this.
But sir, that point about 7-0, all 7 justices looking at it from a singular point.
See, why it's going to be difficult to have it any other way is what they are praying in Ihedioha and his legal team. They're actually saying that the justices should recuse.
Yes.
Let another set of justices. It will never happen. They are colleagues.
Yes.
That means you are pitting them one against the other. You know,
no.
It will never happen.
Let me quickly get in Mazi Okoroha for calling him from Arochukwu. I would have been surprised if the man didn't call in. Good morning, Mazi.
Happy New Year.
Good morning, Sayori. Good morning, the Chief Registrar. Good morning,
Deputy Provost.
Honestly, the military constitution we have destroyed our political system. Now, when we talk about the constitution, you see the military governed us very rough over 30-something years. And at the end of the day, the constitution they drop for us is also destroying this country. Now, if the federal government will try to sign this electoral law, it will help us. Now, we are talking about Imo. You see, I start asking myself, do we have professors in constitutional law? If we have them, what is our role? What are they teaching? Short, the young ones in this university reading law, and even when they go to law school, how will they handle issues like this in subsequent? Because what we are seeing now is just a small thing. Because by the time we move to the next level, honestly speaking, if they bring out the new constitution, if we don't treat this one properly now, it will also generate. Look, like what the registrar said that, if you look at the American system, once they have come to the judiciary, they are now everything follows the question. And when they are giving judgment, you see, now look at when the Supreme Court gave judgment between Buhari and Atiku. You saw what happened that I think it took them up to 7 hours or more than that. The judge was moving from one step. But this one, they just summarize everything, which is not ideal.
Okay.
You see, Nigeria has reached a level that you don't longer bulldoze people and say, after all, you just... No. If we don't stick to the ground and know exactly what we are doing now constitutionally, it means that our level of illiteracy is stay high. Because now you look at what people are, the contribution people are making, even the newspaper and social media about this issue. Even the man who is sleeping in the grave will say, is that how Nigerian constitution dropped by the military have just come to be? We have to call a spade a spade. If we want the needful, we should do it now or never. Thank you very much. Registrar,
thank you very much, Mazi Okoroha. Let me just correct again. It's not registrar they have at NIGO. It's provost and deputy provost. And Dr. Jide Johnson is deputy provost, but we all understand your meaning. Thank you very much, Mazi. In closing, we're waiting, all of us now, on what can possibly come out of this review by the Supreme Court that we understand all sorts of notable citizens are also observing, very much as we say we observe elections. We say Nobel laureate will be observing it, former president will be observing it.
Like Malcolm said, that justice must not only be done, it must be seen
to be done. Citizens' rights must not just be clean, but must be seen to be clean.
This judgment has come into the court of public opinion, and I think that's why the Supreme Court is quickly reviewing the matter, just like that of that the Bayelsa, regardless of whatever divide you belong to, you will discover that it's a sore taste in the mouth.
Indeed.
For someone to win an election and then for the courts to decide who is the actual winner, and for the courts to be using calculator to calculate the result.
My final thoughts?
I think we should stop all this idea of using technicalities to give justice in certain ways. That said, I think the legislature has their cut out for them. They should do the best they can to amend the constitution, especially the electoral law, so that things of this nature, the inconsistencies we have seen in judicial pronouncements, can be curtailed to a large extent.
And not many people would have heard of a Supreme Court review, even though Jide explained that it's not that uncommon, but we shall all be looking with bated breath to what will be the outcome of this Supreme Court review in the case of Imo as regards the legal tussle between Uzodinma and Ihedioha and their parties. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Jide Johnson, Deputy Provost, NIJ.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure. And Mr. Mayo Kunilo, Economist and Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your perspectives. And so that's our program. Please be with us tomorrow when we have a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.